Ladies and gentlemen, welcome and thank you for joining today's conference, Clean Water State Revolving Fund, Flexible Funding for the Urban Tree Canopy. Please note that all lines will be muted to reduce background noise during the call. And with that, I'd like to turn the call over to Kelly Tucker. Kelly, please go ahead.
Good afternoon and welcome to today's webinar, the Clean Water State Revolving Fund, Flexible Funding for the Urban Tree Canopy. This webinar is presented by EPA's Office of Wastewater Management and the USDA Forest Service National Urban Forest Technology and Science Delivery Team. My name is Kelly Tucker with EPA's Clean Water State Revolving Fund program, and I will be moderating today's webinar. Thank you for joining us. Before we get to our presentations, I'd like to go over a few housekeeping items. First, we'll have a question and answer session at the end of the presentations. To ask a question, simply type your question in the questions box on your chat pod and click the send button. You don't need to wait until the Q&A period to submit your question. We will try to answer as many questions as possible at the end of the webcast. However, due to the high number of participants, not all questions will be answered. Please feel free to contact the speakers after the webcast. Speaker contact information will be available at the end of the presentation. If you have technical issues, please raise your hand in Adobe Connect. Sarah Comis will provide a private conversation with you. Today's presentation will be available on EPA's Clean Water State Revolving Fund website within a few weeks. Lastly, we'd like to remind you that the views and materials presented by our speakers today are their own and do not necessarily reflect those of the EPA or the U.S. Forest Service. In this webinar, speakers from the New Jersey Department of Environmental Protection, the Camden County Municipal Utilities Authority, and the New Jersey Tree Foundation explore how the CWSRF can be used as a funding source for green infrastructure and urban forestry projects, a cost-effective way to reduce combined sewage flooding problems. Before I introduce our first speaker, I would like to give you some background on the Clean Water State Revolving Fund for those that may not be familiar with the program. The Clean Water State Revolving Fund is a low-cost source of funding for a wide range of water quality projects. Each state and Puerto Rico has an SRF program. EPA awards capitalization grants to the state programs each year, and the states contribute 20% state match. With these funds, the state programs make low-interest loans to eligible assistance recipients. The recipients repay the loans, and the loan repayments are recycled back into the program to fund additional water quality projects. The state programs have a wide range of flexibility. They can set specific loan terms, including interest rates, from 0% to market rate, and repayment periods up to 30 years. The state programs are responsible for selecting and funding projects and have flexibility to target resources to their particular environmental needs. Over the life of the program, the CWSRF has provided over $118 billion in assistance to projects. In fiscal year 16, the CWSRF made over 1,300 loans that provided $7.6 billion in affordable funding to communities of all sizes. The majority of this funding has been provided to traditional wastewater infrastructure projects, including secondary and advanced treatment and collection systems. However, funding is also being used for projects such as green infrastructure, including tree planting and land acquisition for water quality improvement and protection. The Clean Water State Revolving Fund has 11 statutory project eligibilities that allow the program to fund a wide variety of projects, as you can see here. These include the construction of publicly owned treatment works, stormwater management, water and energy efficiency projects, agricultural BMPs, land conservation, and more. The SRF can fund capital projects as well as planning and design. However, we are not able to fund ongoing operations and maintenance activities. The CWSRF program offers substantial savings to communities. The low interest rates offered by the CWSRF program are comparable to receiving a partial grant combined with a market rate loan. For example, for a $100,000 project with a 20-year loan, when the market rate is 6%, a 3% CWSRF loan is equivalent to receiving a $23,000 grant and getting a loan for $77,000 at market rate. With a 30-year loan, the savings would be even greater. But there's still the problem of requiring a source of revenue to repay the loan. In the SRF program, repayment funds do not necessarily need to come from the project itself. Assistance recipients have flexibility to access income from many sources to repay SRF loans. For example, loans for a wetland restoration project could be repaid by revenues from hunting and fishing licenses, and a nonprofit organization could repay a loan using membership dues. There's a great deal of flexibility, so I encourage you to think creatively about where you or your stakeholders could generate revenue to repay an SRF loan. Finally, I want to mention that several clean water SRF programs have been working with the U.S. Forest Service Urban and Community Forestry Program to find ways in which they can get urban forestry projects funded. Some of the areas that have been explored include marketing, co-funding, partnerships, and innovative SRF financing mechanisms. Each SRF program is different, both in terms of what types of projects they fund and the assistance options available. So if you're interested in learning more, I encourage you to contact the CWSRF program in your state. Contact information can be found on our website at www.epa.gov/CWSRF. And with that, I have the pleasure to introduce our first speaker, Heather Kniznik. Heather received her bachelor's degree from Ramapo College of New Jersey and her master's degree from the University of Pennsylvania, both in environmental studies. Her master's degree concentration was on the urban environment. She has been at the New Jersey Department of Environmental Protection for 10 years, first in the site remediation program for several years, and for the past 6 years as an environmental reviewer in the municipal finance and construction element, which provides financing for clean and drinking water infrastructure improvements through the State Revolving Fund program. Heather handles environmental review of many of the green infrastructure projects coming through the program and is a member of the Municipal Finance and Construction Element Outreach Team. Heather?
Thank you very much, Kelly. I'm very excited to be here today to tell you about an innovative use of the Clean Water State Revolving Fund in New Jersey, the financing of green infrastructure projects. I'll first do an overview of the program before talking about what we've been doing to support green infrastructure projects throughout the state. So a little bit about the structure of our program. The entire program is known as the New Jersey Environmental Infrastructure Financing Program. Through a long-standing partnership between the DEP and the New Jersey Environmental Infrastructure Trust, an independent financing authority, the program is able to provide low-cost financing for a variety of water quality projects. Loan terms vary depending on the project type, but include a combination of zero-interest funds from the DEP through the Clean Water State Revolving Fund, AAA bond market rate funds from the trust, and for some project types, principal forgiveness. Applicants gain a substantial savings by going through our program for all project types to finance these important and essential infrastructure projects, which protect and improve water quality for communities around the state. The program is self-sustaining because loan repayments are made back to the state to replenish New Jersey's Clean Water State Revolving Fund. You may be familiar with the traditional treatment works project types that are typically financed through the program. These include upgrades to wastewater treatment facilities, infiltration and inflow correction modifications, repairs, replacement or construction of new interceptors, pumping stations, and force mains. Also, sewer system rehabilitation projects and CSO correction projects. The program has been financing these projects since its inception in 1988, and these traditional infrastructure projects have been vital to the health of New Jersey's water infrastructure. In recent years, a new and promising category of projects emerged to help manage stormwater runoff in combined sewer areas, green infrastructure. In urban areas, the majority of land surfaces are paved and impervious, so stormwater isn't managed naturally. The infrastructure in New Jersey cities, as in other cities in the northeastern U.S., is combined sewer that's very old, and complete replacement of the systems is usually impractical. The systems lack the capacity to manage all of the runoff during heavy rain events. So, during wet weather, when runoff flows into aging pipes, it can't all be sent to the treatment plant, which results in CSO overflows and accumulates in the streets, causing flooding. Green infrastructure systems are stormwater management features that can mitigate some of the runoff using processes that mimic natural hydrology. They can be used to supplement traditional infrastructure by managing runoff close to where it's generated, reducing peak flow during wet weather. This reduces some of the strain on the overtaxed combined sewer system. New Jersey DEP considers green infrastructure to be those practices that treat stormwater runoff through infiltration using stone or soil, filter it using soils or vegetation, or capture and store it for reuse, for watering gardens or other purposes. These are some of the main types of green infrastructure projects that are eligible for financing through our program. A rain garden or bioretention system is a landscaped, shallow depression that captures, filters, and infiltrates stormwater runoff. It usually has an approximately 2-foot deep soil layer and an underlying stone retention layer. Rain gardens are planted with a variety of native plants, including grasses, wildflowers, and woody plants and trees, adapted to the site conditions. In areas that can't accommodate infiltration, an underdrain can be installed for runoff to be slowly released after the storm event. Then a bump-out rain garden is simply the same kind of system built into a median or sidewalk, which also functions as a traffic calming measure. Stormwater planters are vegetated structures also similar to rain gardens that are built into the sidewalk to intercept runoff from the sidewalk or the roadway. They can include new street trees as part of the bioretention, and so they're a way to add to the tree canopy of a city. A green roof also functions the same way, but is placed on top of a structure with an impenetrable barrier beneath the soil and an underlying media. Permeable pavement surfaces are another category of green infrastructure that includes pervious concrete, porous asphalt, interlocking concrete pavers, and grid pavers. These all function by allowing water to quickly pass through the material or between the pavers into an underlying layered system of stone that filters and holds the water, allowing it to infiltrate into the groundwater or draining it into an underdrain where infiltration isn't possible. Then cisterns and rain barrels capture rainwater from rooftops for reuse for watering gardens, washing vehicles, or other non-potable uses. Usually, applicants group together a large number of these small projects into a larger project for planning, design, and financing purposes. We've also had some large resiliency park and green street projects, which incorporate a number into the overall design. Green infrastructure has been shown to be a sustainable and cost-effective method of stormwater management with a long list of benefits. It helps reduce combined sewer overflow discharges in CSO sewershed areas by reducing peak flow. This is the main reason this Clean Water SRF is able to finance green infrastructure projects in these areas. Also, since green infrastructure is one of the control alternatives that can be included in long-term control plans, it's a tool that cities can use to meet CSO permit requirements. It helps reduce flooding by keeping runoff from backing up in city streets, which benefits public health, safety, and quality of life. Green infrastructure also greatly improves water quality by removing contaminants as they're taken up by vegetation or filtered out through the layers of treatment media below the surface, as well as by keeping untreated runoff out of our waterways. Depending on the water table at the location, a liner may or may not be required under the feature. If it isn't needed, the feature can provide groundwater recharge to the aquifers. Vegetated green infrastructure features like rain gardens provide green space and aesthetic improvement to communities, and the impact is even bigger for a resiliency park with multiple green infrastructure features like rain gardens and bioswales. Green space is a valuable commodity in highly developed urban areas. Studies have shown that it improves people's moods and health to be in close proximity to visible green space. Vegetated green infrastructure also helps cool these areas and cut down on the urban heat island effect. It also absorbs carbon dioxide, helping to mitigate climate change. It really is all about resiliency. Investment in green infrastructure also brings economic benefits to cities in the form of jobs and tax revenues. Jobs are created for the planning, design, construction, as well as maintenance of the features, since maintenance is required to ensure that they continue to function as designed. To be able to qualify for funding through the program, applicants do have to be public entities, like municipalities, counties, utility authorities, or private entities represented by a public conduit. They also need to meet the Trust and State of New Jersey's creditworthiness standards. And a very important point to remember, to qualify for the Green Infrastructure Financing Package, projects do have to be located in a CSO area. Now, just getting into the financing aspect a little bit. This would be the financing package for a green infrastructure project in a CSO area and would apply to a group of distributed green infrastructure projects or a large resiliency park or green street project. The 50% principal forgiveness is basically grant-like funding, and under our proposed intended use plan, there is actually no limit on the principal forgiveness amount. That, in combination with the interest-free financing from DEP and low-interest financing from the Trust, and applicants end up with about 57% savings on the project. One option that can work very well is to combine a green CSO project with a traditional infrastructure project. This can easily be done on a green street project, for example, with bump-out rain gardens, street tree pits, and also replacement of existing pipes. Here's a list of many of the green infrastructure projects in various stages of the financing program, just so you can get an idea of some of the practices that are being used, average cost of the projects, and their locations. I'll give a brief summary of each one. For example, Camden County Municipal Utility Authority has gone above and beyond and has won national awards for their innovative use of the SRF for its multi-phase green-gray infrastructure improvement project in the city of Camden, which you'll hear more about soon from Andy Cricken. Their project included a number of green infrastructure projects throughout the city, like rain gardens and cisterns, as well as improvement of the waterfront with the transformation of a brownfield site into a fantastic public park with green infrastructure features, known as Phoenix Park. Hopefully Andy will tell you some good things about his experience with the financing program. The City of Elizabeth has a flood control project involving the installation of an underground stormwater storage vault and passive park with rain gardens, which is currently under construction. The city Just a moment. The City of Hoboken has a number of green infrastructure projects going through the program to help control CSOs and flooding. One of them is the Southwest Park project, a really interesting project at Block 12 in the very flood-prone southwestern portion of the city, which involves the transformation of a parking lot into a public park with multiple green infrastructure features, including rain gardens and bioswales and a large stormwater detention system. The other is the Washington Street redesign, Green Street project, which includes the construction of 15 rain gardens along the entire length of the busy commercial corridor to help filter and detain runoff. City of Perth Amboy has been pursuing financing for a few projects. One of the ones that's furthest along in the process is the replacement of impervious asphalt pavement at 2 municipal parking lots with porous pavement, capturing and filtering runoff and allowing it to slowly drain into the subsoil. The City of Newark is also going to be getting financing for an exciting Green Streets project involving porous pavement, rain gardens, stormwater planters, and tree trenches. We're very glad that cities have been pursuing green infrastructure projects through the financing program and hope to keep seeing more of these projects in the future. We do know that sometimes potential applicants are hesitant to come to the state for financing because they think it'll be a very long and drawn-out process. One of our goals is to make sure the projects can get through the program and be funded and built as quickly as possible. Still, projects must go through a technical oversight process to help ensure they meet regulatory requirements and have the highest water quality benefit possible. This is a thorough process, but reviewers are very willing to work with applicants so the process can go smoothly. The technical oversight for green infrastructure projects consists of a stormwater review, an environmental review, and an engineering review. The Stormwater Management Unit in the Bureau of Non-Point Source Pollution Control, or the Land Use Program, reviews the projects to ensure that the designs of the features are hydrologically sound and will function as intended. All of the projects go through our usual NEPA-like environmental review process, which involves review of the planning and design and completion of an environmental decision document. All of the projects also go through our engineering review process. The engineer would also look at the sizing and location of the feature or features to ensure that they're designed properly. One aspect that we can really help out with is if additional permits are required to complete a project, such as freshwater wetlands, flood hazard, or Army Corps permits. We can facilitate coordination within DEP with different permitting groups or with outside agencies to ensure that all of the regulatory programs are working together so that efforts don't need to be repeated and permits can be issued in a timely manner. We also currently have an active outreach program, and as part of that, we're committed to spreading the word to communities about the financing program. We're happy to go out and talk to municipal leaders to give more information about traditional and innovative projects like green infrastructure they can complete through the program, answer any questions, and help them through the process. Thank you very much for listening. I hope that I've been able to provide some useful insight into what New Jersey has been doing to promote innovative stormwater management through the Environmental Infrastructure Financing Program. Please reach out if you have any questions on the program.
Thank you, Heather. Now I'm pleased to introduce our second speaker, Andrew Cricken. Andy is the Executive Director and Chief Engineer of the Camden County Municipal Utilities Authority, operators of an 80 million gallon per day wastewater treatment plant in Camden, New Jersey. He has over 30 years of wastewater management and biosolids management experience. Mr. Cricken graduated with honors from Princeton University with a degree in chemical engineering. He is also a licensed professional civil engineer and a board-certified member of the American Institute of Environmental Engineers. Mr. Cricken currently serves on the board of the National Association of Clean Water Agencies and is the chair of its Clean Water Industry of the Future Committee and its Environmental Justice and Community Service Committee. He also serves on the New Jersey Environmental Justice Advisory Council. He received the 2012 Praxis Award for Professional Ethics, the US EPA Environmental Champion Award in 2012, and the 2015 NACWA President's Award for service to the clean water industry. Andy?
Thanks very much, Kelly. I really appreciate the opportunity to present in this webcast with you and with my colleagues. So we are a clean water utility, and as you had indicated, and I think there are three main takeaways. I'll start with my first slide, which is a great quote from Mahatma Gandhi, that you must be the change you wish to see in the world. And I think that is always true, but I think in today's times, with environmental regulations being challenged, I think that's even more important than ever for us to go beyond our normal paradigm and to try to do as much as we possibly can to make a positive difference in the world. And so the three main takeaways that I want to have from my presentation here is that, one, as Heather said so well, green infrastructure has many, many benefits. And the old paradigm for clean water utilities was really to look at a bottom line, a single bottom line basis, but the clean water utilities of today, of the future, are really looking at a triple bottom line approach, where the benefits are not only economic but also environmental and community. So, and green infrastructure is really a perfect example, as Heather just went through so well. There are economic, environmental, and community benefits in green infrastructure. So something that is really, especially for a clean water utility in a combined sewer service area like ours in Camden, it's really an important part of our repertoire in order to deal with combined sewage flooding issues. That's the first thing. The second thing is that because it's somewhat outside of our bailiwick, our normal wastewater treatment role, it's really essential to partner. And we've been really lucky, as you'll see from this presentation, to have terrific partners, including the NJDEP, represented by Heather today, as you heard earlier, and also New Jersey Tree Foundation, as you'll hear in a few moments from Jess Franzini, and others, as you'll see. And then the third thing is that we absolutely could not do projects like this without a robust and innovative state revolving fund like the one we have in New Jersey, the New Jersey Environmental Infrastructure Financing Program run by the NJ Department of Environmental Protection and the New Jersey Environmental Infrastructure Trust. So those are the three main takeaways. So you can wander away for the next 12 or 13 minutes. No, just kidding. But those are the three main takeaways, mainly that green infrastructure is an important triple bottom line benefit innovation for clean water utilities in order to reduce combined sewage flooding, that environmental partners are really essential for clean water utilities to do this kind of work, and the benefits, the financial benefits of the State Revolving Fund are really necessary to make it happen. So the old paradigm for clean water utilities, like I was saying, was that, and this is really true, that permit compliance was the ceiling of aspirations. As long as we met the permit and stayed away from trouble, stay away from the public, stay away from bad newspaper reports, and definitely stay away from your regulator. But that is an old, outdated paradigm. The new paradigm for the clean water utility of the future is that meeting the permit is just a floor. I mean, that's just a given, and we want to optimize our effluent quality. We want to make a positive difference for our communities. We also want to reduce our carbon footprint. Clean water utilities are doing a really important job in cleaning water and protecting our waterways, but it's very energy intensive to the extent that we can reduce our carbon footprint and reduce our impact on climate change and global warming. That's very important. And we can make a positive difference in our neighborhoods and also do our job when we look for triple bottom line benefit projects like green infrastructure. I think well, let me just back up a bit. I think one of the main things is that in addition to just to doing our core mission of cleaning water, the Clean Water Utility of the Future wants to be an anchor institution in their community to make a positive difference for the environment and also for quality of life. Now, my utility operates in Camden City, New Jersey, which is right across the Delaware River from Philadelphia. It's one of the poorest cities in the nation. It has a significant amount of crime. Recently, the population is a little under 80,000, and they've averaged 50 to 80 murders. It's almost 1 in 1,000. So it's a city with a lot of challenges. But as I'm sure Jess will tell you too, Jess Franzini, there's a lot of light. There's a lot of the flip side of challenge is opportunity. And in Camden City, there's so many problems, so many issues, but so many amazing people who are working together to try to combat these difficulties and to do the best that they can. Now, one of the issues besides the crime and poverty is that the infrastructure is aging, and that's an issue that's really a problem all around the country. The American Society of Civil Engineers recently issued the report card for water infrastructure, and we went up from a D to a D+, which is not really very good. It's really a challenge, and it's more than just a grade. It's a significant problem, as you'll see in a minute. When it floods in Camden City, when the infrastructure isn't sufficient to carry the sewage, it results in combined sewage flooding in the homes, in the streets, and the parks of Camden City. So here's an example of just a 1-inch rain event, which is, it's not a drizzle, but it's really an average rain event, a substantive but not overly tremendous rain event, and yet look at the flooding in the city, and bear in mind, because it's a combined sewer system, because the stormwater and the sewage are together in one pipe, that means that flood, that's dilute sewage that's there. That's sewage that kids are walking through puddles to get to their bus stop, or sewage is backing up into the homes of people. So for this reason, there were a lot of entities working in Camden City that just felt that this was not only an environmental problem, but a public health issue, and also an issue of social justice. That it shouldn't matter what address you live in, what zip code you have. You should have access to certain fundamental things, such as protection from combined sewage flooding, or I would also add safe drinking water. We started thinking about a green infrastructure program to do something about this combined sewage flooding problem. I should note that our utility does not own the Camden City sewer system. We own the wastewater treatment plant that receives flow from Camden City, but the city itself owns the combined sewer system. So luckily for us, we went across the river with EPA's invitation and recommendation and went to Philadelphia, which is one of the leading probably the leading entity for green infrastructure, certainly the pioneer in implementing green infrastructure, and they were tremendous. They took a two cities, one river approach and really mentored us in many of the projects and programs that we were able to implement. But we couldn't do it alone because, like I said, we don't own the combined sewer system. That's one big difference between ourselves and Philadelphia, where they own the sewer system, or like in Washington, D.C. or New York City. We're a regional utility that receives the flow from Camden City. So our process to deal with the combined sewage flooding problem was one of collaboration. And so we reached out to the Coopers Ferry Development Partnership, which is a local community group that works with the communities in the neighborhood. We reached out to the New Jersey Tree Foundation, represented today by Jessica Franzini. We reached out to our friends at the New Jersey Department of Environmental Protection, and we also reached out to the State University of New Jersey, the Rutgers Cooperative Extension, and together we formed the Camden SMART program, which is an acronym for Stormwater Management and Resource Training. And the idea was for these partners to work together to try to collectively deal with this combined sewage flooding problem. All five of us, Coopers Ferry, the New Jersey Tree Foundation, New Jersey DEP, Rutgers, and ourselves, were always working in Camden City for some time in our own separate projects. But we realized that we could do much more together than we could separately, and so we combined voluntarily to try to deal with the city's combined sewage flooding problem. We also, though, realized it's a community problem. So, and this is where the New Jersey Tree Foundation and the Coopers Ferry especially really helped a lot, because they were already in the communities working with them on various projects, on planting trees. And so they had access to the communities and could help us find where the flooding problems were. So basically the way the partners divided up the project was Coopers Ferry would be our community liaison and our liaison with the city, because ultimately it was the city's combined sewer system. We would get technical input from Rutgers to design the rain gardens. The Tree Foundation provided assistance with community service and also with the trees themselves that would go in the rain gardens. New Jersey Department of Environmental Protection provided technical assistance and also the all-important financing through the State Revolving Fund, and then we implemented the projects. So it was really a good team effort, all five of us working together to accomplish more than anything we could have done separately. So we implemented basically a multi-pronged approach. In addition to green infrastructure, which you've heard quite a lot about from Heather and you'll hear more about from Jess, we also implemented a water conservation ordinance for the city. We also worked on upgrading Camden City's existing combined sewer system, because even not only was it aging, it was also under-maintained, and so it was not functioning properly. So we worked with the city in a peer-to-peer relationship that we developed to try to assist them in optimizing the current system to at least get as much capacity out of it as possible. And we also did several capital upgrades. And we installed netting systems to capture the solids that would go through the overflow, so that if water was going to go, sewage was going to go into the river, at least the solids, the human waste part would be captured, and only the water would go into the river. So that made a significant difference for the water quality of the Delaware River. So we, as Heather said earlier, we did green and gray projects together, and all of them were financed by the New Jersey State Revolving Fund. Thus far, in addition to the water conservation ordinance, we've planted over 50 rain gardens, over 1,000 trees planted, led by the Tree Foundation, of course. We did a stream daylighting project, which Jess will tell you more about, which basically opened up a stream that had been paved over. We've created 2 riverfront parks thus far, and we have funding from the Infrastructure Trust to create 3 more. So we'll have 5 riverfront parks. And not only, in each case, there's contamination involved, so we're removing a brownfield site, which was adding contaminated runoff into the Delaware River. We're getting rid of impervious surface, so therefore we're reducing the combined sewage flooding problem and providing a green space and a community benefit for our neighbors. So like I said earlier, the flip side of challenge is opportunity, and so since the city has so many needs, when you do a project in a city like this, there are a lot of opportunities for win-wins because there's a lot of low-hanging fruit. We've also installed, with the EIT's financing, over $30 million in gray infrastructure improvements, and there's more to come. So thus far, the EIT Infrastructure Trust, the SRF, has provided $11 million in green and gray infrastructure financing directly. But then if you add in the netting systems, that was another $20 million. So that was over $30 million in green and gray infrastructure for the combined sewer system. And we have an applications in for about $80 million in additional green and gray infrastructure improvements to try to deal once and for all with the combined sewage flooding problems. And again, when I say we, I don't only mean my utility, but I also mean our partners, the NJDEP, New Jersey Tree Foundation, Cooper's Ferry, and Rutgers, the Kim and Smart Initiative teammates that are working together to deal with the combined sewage flooding. But the thing I will say real quickly is that the SRF financing was so crucial in order for us to do this because, as I said, the Camden City sewer system is not our only. First of all, we don't own it. It's not our. We don't own it. It's not our obligation. They're one of 37 towns that are serviced by our wastewater treatment plant. Without the SRF financing, we would have probably had to raise rates in order to do these projects. But because of the economic benefits that Heather outlined in the earlier presentation, we were able to accomplish this important thing, from an environmental and community service and public health perspective without having to raise rates for any of our customers. The SRF was really the key because of the principal forgiveness they provided, which is basically a grant if you don't have to pay back that portion of the loan, and the very low interest rate. The interest rate that we received was less than 1%. And it's over, now they offer a 30-year program with less than 1% interest with some principal forgiveness. It's an unbeatable combination. And Heather's right that there are some utilities that feel that the SRF requires more work, and it might require maybe 5 or 10% more effort than if you were financing it yourself. But the difference between less than 1% interest and the 4 or 5% interest that you get on the market is as Heather said, a 30 to 40% grant depending on the amount of money and the interest rate that you get. It's a very significant grant. So I think any public servant is doing their community an injustice if they don't take the little bit of extra time to go through the SRF program and realize those rate savings for their communities. In addition, the SRF, the people at the NJDEP have been so great in helping to fast-track projects through permitting in order to get keep them on track for the financing. So therefore, in many ways, an SRF-funded project goes through faster than a non-one SRF. And just real quickly, to let you know that we've used the SRF for many other things. Just in the last 5 years, last 10 years, we've borrowed over $130 million to upgrade our wastewater treatment plant through the SRF. In addition to the green and gray infrastructure, the SRF has been invaluable to our agency in enabling us to optimize our environmental performance while also holding our rates. And there's just a quick calculation of how much of a difference it makes. On a capital project of $20 million, you see there's the difference of an annual debt service because of the low-cost interest makes the difference between a go and a no-go because, most capital projects will reduce your operations costs, but then you have to pay the debt service. But the debt service is so much lower that we were able to actually hold our rate and not have to raise them because the debt service costs were lower than the O&M savings, and that's because of the terrific program at the SRF, the low-interest loans that the SRF operates. The environmental and economic benefits, Heather really went through them. It's a triple bottom line benefit. There's environmental benefits for reducing combined sewage flooding and overflows into the river. There's public health benefits, and there's also economic benefits because there's less stormwater that you're treating. You're also conserving water because when you mix stormwater in with sewage, you basically have sewage. So by keeping them separate, by keeping the stormwater out of the combined sewer system, it's an environmental benefit in that way as well. So doing the right thing is also doing the smart thing by taking the higher road clean water utilities and working with the regulators as opposed to evading them or avoiding them. It's also the smart thing to do as well. So thanks so very much for listening. In summary, the clean water utilities of the future have the opportunity to become the change that we seek, to make a positive difference, to no longer just be regulated industries just like a factory, but become environmental champions and community service champions. We're governmental entities, we're environmental entities, and we're utilities that should be trying to become anchor institutions in our neighborhoods and environmental partners with our regulators. And green infrastructure is a terrific way to do such projects, and we've been very lucky to have tremendous partners like New Jersey Tree Foundation, who we're about to hear from, and also tremendous help from the SRF, without which we could not have done this project. Thank you very much for listening.
Thank you, Andy. I would now like to introduce our final speaker, Jessica Franzini. Jess is the Senior Program Director of the New Jersey Tree Foundation. Through her role, she has organized the planting of over 3,000 street trees in the city of Camden since 2009. She has a bachelor's in environmental studies and a concentration in sustainability and environmental policy from the Richard Stockton College of New Jersey. Jessica is a co-founder of the Camden Smart Green Infrastructure Team. In 2016, she and her crew maintained 20 green infrastructure sites in Camden, providing green jobs to local residents. Jess?
Thank you, Kelly. I also want to thank the EPA as a whole, and also NJDEP and Heather, along with the CCMUA and Andy for having us on the call today. So, as Kelly described, I'm with the New Jersey Tree Foundation, and we are a statewide nonprofit organization. And I'm excited to share with you the impact that these projects that the CCMUA has made possible through the state revolving funds have had on the city of Camden. I first want to explain that our organization, we partner with the New Jersey Department of Environmental Protection's Community Forestry Program, and we serve as the state volunteer coordinator. And for that reason, we're able to partner with them to do good work in the city of Camden and all throughout the state. So we just want to thank them for the opportunity to do that work. Being involved with this initiative has allowed us to creatively further our mission of planting trees in Camden, while also advancing green infrastructure projects as a whole. So it's an exciting place to work, and I'm happy to share some with you. So just a little introduction to who we are as an organization. So we are, as I said, statewide, but we are dedicated to urban forestry throughout the state. And we want to plant trees in underserved neighborhoods, in urban areas where these trees can make a difference for the environment and for the quality of life. So what you see here in this picture is it's just a demonstration of most of our community-based projects. So we're typically planting street trees in partnership with residents and community groups. Now, this photo here, Andy touched on setting that framework for what it's like in Camden. You can see along the picture on the left, the flooding in the city. And as Andy explained, we have a combined sewer system, so when you see this, you're seeing a mix of stormwater and untreated wastewater. And then on the right-hand side, this is just a photo that I wanted to share to sort of demonstrate what many Camden neighborhoods look like. So you can see here that, there are no trees on this block. I can also share that, there's no park space nearby. So what I love about these green infrastructure projects and what I meant about it advancing our mission in the city is that not only are we able to tackle the problem on the left, which is a huge environmental issue, a huge human health issue, and environmental justice problem, combating that flooding on the left, but then also just improving the neighborhoods, restoring nature, pride and beauty to neighborhoods, and improving quality of life in that way. So I love the multi-tiered approach and the benefits that implementing these projects brings to the city of Camden. As Andy described, we are a part of the Camden Smart Initiative. So I should say that without being a part of this initiative, our organization would not have had access, at least from my understanding, to the state revolving funds because we just don't have the capacity to apply for them. But with the CCMUA and Andy taking the lead on that and engaging us as a partner, it allowed us to help identify locations for green infrastructure projects, many of which involved planting trees. And then also, as Kelly described, it allowed us to create a green jobs program and maintain many of these green infrastructure projects that were installed through state revolving funds, but have then been maintained through other means, grants that we receive. So at this time, I want to invite Andy to jump in at any time because certainly I'm presenting about projects that have happened in the city of Camden thanks to his amazing leadership and this awesome collaborative that we're all part of. So what I'm going to do now is run through some of the different projects that have been made possible in the city because of state revolving funds and because of the partnership that the CCMUA helped create through Camden Smart. So what you see on the left here is a rain garden at the Caddo School in East Camden. So you can see here from the photo that this garden is intercepting stormwater runoff from the rooftop of the school. And it's going here into the rain garden. Now, this rain garden is intercepting 207,000 gallons of stormwater a year. On the right-hand side, we have porous concrete and we have curbside planters installed at a Vietnamese community garden, also in East Camden. This project intercepts 115,000 gallons of stormwater annually. So on the left side here, we've got a rain garden that's not only intercepting hundreds of thousands of gallons of stormwater a year and providing that improvement, reducing the burden to the combined system, but we also have beautified school grounds and offered a demonstration project that can be incorporated into the school's curriculum for learning with the students. And then on the right-hand side, there's an amazing community here that's growing food at this community garden, and they had a degraded sidewalk, and there is flooding in this area. So this project is reducing that flooding, beautifying the curbside of this community space, and then also demonstrating that not only can we improve the sidewalk, but we can actually install a porous sidewalk that can absorb water. Okay, our next project is Waterfront South Rain Gardens. This is an amazing project, and I just have to say how wonderful it's been working in Camden with an innovative leader like Andy, looking at a site like what you see in the top left, an abandoned gas station. And he says, I think we can make this into a park. So what happened here is that the site was cleaned up from a brownfield site, as Andy describes, and then it was made into a rain garden park. So there are 4 rain gardens on the site. And you can see from the picture on the right-hand side, this where we have the sidewalk, we can see water is traveling in here into the rain garden. Forgive me for tripping on my words on that. Let's go to the next slide. These are more photos here. So you can see that the rainwater can travel from the street. It can enter in this rock bed here on the left-hand side. So this is a photo from Waterfront South Rain Gardens of the rain gardens at work, intercepting stormwater from the street that would otherwise flood or otherwise burden the combined sewer system. And then on the right-hand side, you see the community benefit, the beautification elements of the park. So we have Winter King hawthorns pictured on the bottom. Those are the trees that were planted here. They're a great urban-tolerant tree. They have beautiful berries, as you can see in the top photo here, throughout the fall. And then you can see some perennials that were planted on the site as well. There is a wildflower meadow. There is a pathway essentially it's a passive park, so it's not necessarily meant to be a recreational space, but it's meant to be a beautiful space that people can travel through when they're walking the neighborhood. And there is a solar compacting track on site as well. And to speak of maintenance, I should say that the CCMUA has been dedicated to keeping the space looking absolutely beautiful. And it's one of our most transformative projects. I can add that it maintains, it absorbs 470,000 gallons of stormwater a year, and we have over 20 trees planted at the site. All right, our next project is Phoenix Park. This went from an abandoned factory to a waterfront park. So you can see in the top left, we had a 5-acre space here, totally impervious and contaminated. And then now we have waterfront access for the Waterfront South neighborhood of Camden. We have a 5-acre park that's absolutely gorgeous. And as you can see in the bottom left, there's even a trail that leads along the Delaware River overlooking the Philadelphia skyline. So this is really improving quality of life for the residents that live in this area, in addition to managing 5 million gallons of stormwater a year, which is absolutely incredible. And we have dozens of trees planted on this site as well. I wanted to show the diversity in these projects because many of the projects that I showed before were high-cost projects. And this is an example here of a smaller project done in partnership with one of our stakeholders, Respond Incorporated. And it installed a cistern, and it installed raised garden beds and trees on the site. So what you're looking at here manages 36,000 gallons of stormwater a year and allows us to really work with those local partners that are doing so much for the community to bring a a community benefit beyond just managing that stormwater. But that cistern there allows for the project to intercept and remove a small amount of water from the combined system each year. All right, this project here, Andy had mentioned before, this space, Baldwin's Run, was originally a stream and was paved over. So flooding in this area, the Kramer Hill neighborhood of Camden, was so bad. It was absolutely the worst flooding area of the city, at least where residents are living. And when residents did their neighborhood plan for this area, and they were asked to identify the #1 thing that they wanted to address to improve their neighborhood, they chose to reduce the flooding. And that speaks volumes when you live in a community that's historically ranked in the top 5 most dangerous cities in the entire nation, to list flooding as your #1 issue that is degrading quality of life. So this project here actually removes 50 million gallons of stormwater a year from the combined system. And what it did was it's called daylighting a stream. So it restored the stream that used to be here. And what it also did was install this beautiful boardwalk that walks out over a wetlands area near the Delaware River. So there is still that, in addition to improving the environment and the quality of life by reducing flooding in this neighborhood, we've also installed a space that people can use to enjoy nature in their urban area. And it's one of our most successful projects. The next ones here are again, smaller projects. On the left, we see Oscillero Learning Center storm downspout planter boxes that are connected to the rooftop runoff. So the runoff, the rainwater is coming off the roof, traveling down the downspout, and it's watering the plants that are in these boxes. Those boxes are intercepting 30,000 gallons of stormwater a year. And then on the right-hand side, at St. Bartholomew's Church in Camden, we installed a cistern and then a rain garden. So the rainwater is hitting the rooftop, coming down the downspout. It's going into the cistern, and then the excess from the cistern is also watering the rain garden. The cistern is used primarily to water the vegetable and perennial garden at St. Bart's, and this project is managing 7,500 gallons of stormwater a year. So this slide is looking a little distorted. I apologize about the picture. But in closing, what I want to share from the nonprofit perspective is that this model, this collaborative model, where you can work with your city, your town, your county leaders to use SRF funds to implement creative green infrastructure projects that incorporate tree planting, is just absolutely incredible. And my hope is that the New Jersey Tree Foundation, in partnership with New Jersey DEP Community Forestry and the state revolving funds, can continue to do this work in other parts of the state. And my hope is also that people on this call that may work in other areas throughout the United States can take this as a model to implement similar projects like this in their own communities. And this here is my email address if anyone would like to reach out to me directly.
Okay, thank you, Jess. We'd now like to open it up to questions and answers with our speakers.
All right, hello everyone. So one of the questions we like to ask is there a requirement in all states for it to be a CSO watershed in order to receive SRF funding?
So I wanted to point out that the Clean Water SRF is the program operates in all 50 states and Puerto Rico, and each SRF program is different in terms of what types of projects they fund and the types of assistance they provide. So while this one example featured a CSO area, these types of projects could be done in any areas. The SRF programs nationwide fund projects in rural areas as well as cities, and can provide assistance to both municipalities, like the example here, and also to nonprofit organizations directly. So if you're interested in using the SRF for a project, I would recommend that you visit our website, and we have the contact information for each of the state programs. And so get in touch with them and talk to them about what types of projects they fund, let them know what you're looking for, and then you can learn also about their application process and the different deadlines for submitting project proposals and assistance applications for assistance.
All right, thank you, Kelly. This next question is for Andy. Andy, there was someone interested in learning more about the CSO netting system. Could you talk more about that, please?
Yeah, so the CSO netting systems are required, well, they're part of what's called the 9 minimum controls for combined sewer overflow systems. And the idea is that when you have a combined sewer system, because there could always be a rain event that would exceed the capacity of the pipe, there are these overflows or outfall relief valves basically for the system. So unfortunately, though, because the Camden City system is so undersized, they overflow more frequently than they ought to. So to minimize that impact, the impact of a combined sewage overflow into the Delaware River, we put netting systems at the end of the outfall pipes, or just before the end of the outfall pipes, so that the water will pass through. The nets have a half-inch opening only, so the solids are from the. First of all, there's two components of solids. One is the human waste, when we go number 2, but also because it's a stormwater, it's a combined system. Things are coming in from the stormwater system, like leaves or bricks or wood, that sort of, or things that people flush down the toilet as well. So all these solids are captured in the nets as the water passes through, and then the nets are removed after each rain event and disposed of. And in that way, we probably save about 500 tons of solids per year by capturing the solids in the nets, as opposed to allowing them to go out as they normally would have before through the overflow system. So if anyone wants any additional information, I'd be glad to. My email address is on the presentation, and I'd be glad to provide more details offline.
Great, thank you, Andy, for that. Another question we have is, if there are any objections, what challenges did you might have encountered in using SRF? Maybe any instances with your finance departments? Is that something that you can talk about, Andy?
Definitely. There really aren't. I mean, it's hard for me to say what were the biggest challenges. Other than maybe the first time learning the requirements, that's about it. I mean, the SRF in New Jersey is run by the New Jersey Department of Environmental Protection, which Heather represents today, which is sort of the technical arm, and then the New Jersey Environmental Infrastructure Trust, which provides the financing, and the two of them work together to administer the SRF, and they have been nothing but helpful. First of all, the elements that go into designing the project, you would have to do whether you finance that yourself or through the SRF. The loan application process is very straightforward in New Jersey, and the EIT, the Infrastructure Trust, and the Department of Environmental Protection are always, glad to help if you have any questions. And then they also help you accelerate the project through the permitting process, and the same permits are required. So there might be a little bit of extra reporting, but the difference, just to give a quick instance, we did a $50 million sewer infrastructure project, a gray-only project, that was a capital cost of $50 million. Due to the request of some of our policymakers, they asked if we would, they wanted to see if it truly was cheaper to go through the SRF. So we got quotes from outside financing institutions, and the cost of financing, the difference was $85 million over 20 years versus less than 60. So it's a $25 million savings over 20 years because of the low interest rates of the state revolving fund. So to save that kind of money, even if the extra work was 5 times as much as it is, it would be worth it, but it's really not. It's really just the extra reporting is very modest, and we're lucky in New Jersey that the SRF is so abundant, and also that the people who administer it, the DEP and the EIT, are very innovative in trying to find ways to fund environmentally beneficial projects.
If I could add to that also, from the New Jersey Tree Foundation's perspective, we're used to implementing community-based projects where we know roughly 3 to 6 months in advance what projects we're doing. And when we started working through Camden SMART and the CCMUA to help make suggestions for projects that could be included for SRF funding, there are certain projects that couldn't meet that timeline because SRF, you just need to know in advance where you'll be working. So what worked out really well for us was to keep doing our resident-based, tree in front of people's homes type of projects on our own through other grant funds, but to use this as an opportunity to incorporate trees and urban forestry into some really amazing, innovative projects in Camden's parks and open spaces that wouldn't have otherwise been possible.
All right, thank you guys. Another question that was asked earlier is where it was about the environmental review requirements for the state and for federal requirements.
Right, so I think Heather earlier mentioned the need for an environmental review perhaps, and that's where this question came from. So the SRF has a requirement that treatment works projects need to complete an environmental review. We do not use NEPA. We use a state environmental review process. So it differs from state to state, but it is a statutory requirement of the Clean Water State Revolving Program.
Great, thank you, Kelly. We also
one thing I'd just like to add to that is that that environmental review is really nothing additional that you wouldn't have to do, an analysis you'd have to do anyway in order to determine the feasibility of a project and get the permits needed for that same project. So the marginal amount of work is negligible.
Great, great. Another question we have are about combining SRF funds with other funding sources. Kelly can help us out with that one too.
Sure. So from an EPA perspective, you can combine clean water SRF funds with other funding sources. So for example, if you had a grant from another source, you could get an SRF loan that could perhaps serve as match for that grant or can make up the difference for what the grant did not cover. I don't know if Andy or Heather or Jess have anything to add to that with their experiences, but just in a broad sense, that is a possibility, that option is available.
Kelly, I can add to that. One of the projects that we did that Jess described and depicted was the stream daylighting project, and so this is really this was funded with 3 or 4 different funding sources. And this is really an example of why collaborating is the way we do here in Camden has been so helpful, because the collaborators are a state agency like the DEP, a governmental entity, utility like ourselves, 2 nonprofits, New Jersey Tree Foundation, Cooper's Ferry, and then Rutgers, the state university. So each of us qualifies for things as nonprofits, governmental entities, educational institutions that the others don't, and so we can pool our resources. So Cooper's Ferry obtained financing, state financing that we didn't necessarily qualify for, and we supplemented it with the SRF funding. So together we pooled the funding that each of us had gotten and did the project collectively. So it's a good example. So Kelly is right. They can be used together, and also a collaboration enables you to I guess, vary your portfolio of funding sources.
Great.
I think that was very well said.
Thank you, Andy. I think that's about all we have time for today. So I'd like to thank Heather, Andy, and Jess for joining us today, and all of our participants for listening in. As a reminder, today's presentation will be available on EPA's Clean Water SRF website, which is shown on this slide. And we also have the contact information for all of our speakers today. So if you have questions that weren't answered, or if you think of something else later, feel free to send them an email, and they will be able to get back to you with more information. Finally, please join us for our next webinar planned for April 13th, 2017 on sponsorship, a unique tool for funding land conservation projects with the Clean Water SRF. Information about the rest of the Clean Water State Revolving Fund webinars planned for 2017 will be posted on our website as the year progresses. This ends our webinar for today. Thank you.
The call has now concluded, and you may now disconnect.